Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs? Welcome back to the pod.
What's going on?
OTAs start for the Patriots this week.
Wow.
Because they have a new offensive coordinator, they fall into different rules, so they can have one or two extra OTAs than other teams.
Oh. Interesting.
That offensive. The media doesn't show up till Thursday, though, which kind of blows because I wanted to hear what the crap's going on there. I want to see how many snaps Bailey's getting.
Yeah, Zappy and Mac are splitting. They're battling for the starting role.
Yikes. Apparently this weekend, Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi both went to that Taylor Swift one of the Taylor Swift concerts.
Yeah, do you see that picture of Mac at the concert?
Yes.
He looks so white.
He's white. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I know, but like
Bailey Zappi and Mac level. Jones did not hang out together at that.
Whoa.
I mean, what, you know.
They play with their
apparently
girls.
Bill was at one too.
Oh my gosh,
not to bring the Patriots fully into this conversation.
Taylor Swift invades Foxborough.
Yeah, it was a cluster bleep for 3 days, and all I heard was Taylor Swift music everywhere. Turned on the radio, Taylor Swift music. Turned on sports radio, Taylor Swift music. My wife's a huge Taylor Swift fan, so it was just Taylor Swift 24/7. I was trying to find.
You guys didn't go.
I was trying to find her tickets. It's just impossible. She tried to buy tickets like 500 times. I was trying.
Well, they were like $2,000.
Spending $2,000 for tickets on the resale websites.
On the the last row of Gillette Stadium.
Oh, so bad.
The bleachers.
But anyway, welcome to the Fantasy Football Podcast. Sorry for the Patriots Taylor Swift monologue to start. Today we're going to talk about second-year wide freaking receivers. So last Tuesday or a couple episodes ago, we talked about top second-year running backs, which is an interesting show considering there's not many of them. Wide receivers, different conversation. A lot of different guys involved. A lot of guys with high draft capital. So we're going to try to rip through like a bunch of them with some honorable mentions. Typically, we normally talk about 5. I threw some extra guys in here just so we can discuss them. It'll be kind of a similar format to the other one, not really rankings, but we'll give you, we'll talk about guys and talk about our feelings about the player, what you should do with them and stuff like that. Before we do that, check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcast platforms, please leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, like, and comment down below. Rick is on a time crunch, so we will, we're going to try to actually get this done fast.
Yeah.
For once. Yeah. For me, maybe not. I feel like we really need to be, good on it. I'm going to put time on my phone here. I'm going to pull up the timer. See what happens. See if this happens, guys. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Top second-year wide receivers. So second-year breakouts for running backs are typically, I would say, a little bit more rare, unless the guy was redshirted like Ramondre.
Right.
Usually, if you're going to be a success in the NFL at the running back position, it comes year one. I'm kind of done with this whole mentality of second-year running backs having huge breakout seasons. I've gotten burned by far too many running back. Miles Sanders, Antonio Gibson.
Clyde,
thank you. So, I'm not.
What about Josh Jacobs? I mean, that wasn't year 2. That was like year 4.
Well, he was RB1.
That's an out. That's true, and he was an RB1 in the past, wasn't he? As a rookie, wasn't he or at least
he was
top 15?
He was top 12 as a rookie.
Yeah.
So typically, if you're good, you're at least top 15, top 20 year 1. You're good because they're utilized right away. Wide receiver is a little bit different. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 years for a wide receiver to break onto the scene. Lately, You've seen some successful wide receivers come into the NFL. Justin Jefferson, year one, was really good. Jamar Chase, year one, was really good. So you've seen some guys have some year one success. This year, Garrett Wilson was actually pretty good year one as well. And this is specifically related to fantasy football, by the way. I mean, statistically, there's a lot of guys that have really good seasons as rookies, but fantasy football usually don't see production from rookies at the wide receiver position.
Right.
Immediately. But anyway, so we're going to talk about top second-year wide receivers, guys that could possibly break out that you should be keeping your eye on for this episode. The first guy, Rick's dude, we've talked about him before. Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't need to spend hours on him, but it's Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson. He's I feel like talked about a lot already in the offseason, and it's gonna just continue all the way till the season.
Yeah, we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about Garrett Wilson. So let me pull up his statistical numbers. But Garrett Wilson last year, he was, like I said, he was really good. For fantasy football, it wasn't like amazing. Like, he had some really good performances. He was wide receiver 21, so he finished in the top 24. It was an incredible season for him. He played 17 games, had 147 targets, 83 receptions, 1,100 yards, 4 tutties, averaged 12.7 fantasy points per game in PPR. So he's a fantastic wide receiver last year. Didn't he win Rookie of the Year?
I believe he did win Rookie of the Year. Yes.
Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yes, he did.
So yeah, I mean, he's fantastic wide receiver. Obviously, we know the improvements that the Jets made. They bring in Aaron Rodgers. They add him to the squad, and he's an all-timer at the quarterback position. So that should mean good things for Garrett Wilson. But we'll see whether it does or not, because things could go negative as well for him. Because that apparently happened to the Denver Broncos last year with Nathaniel Hackett and all that stuff. I've brought up all the negatives about Garrett Wilson, but let's spend this show talking about why it's a good thing. Okay. So I would say go ahead. I was just gonna say, you would imagine with the Aaron Rodgers signing that this would be really good for Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest. That is the biggest reason for him. I know early on in training camp, or I don't know if it's not training camp, it's whatever, like early throwing sessions and stuff. Rodgers has said that he reminds him of Devontae Adams. He's going to be like the guy in that Jets offense. And of all the players in the league, he's probably getting the biggest quarterback upgrade, right? Of all the wide receivers. He's going from Mike White and Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers. So he's getting a massive quarterback upgrade. And I do think we need to preference last year, as you said, the Denver Broncos, because Jerry Jeudy was also getting a massive quarterback upgrade. And he did do better, but the expectations weren't quite hit because of I guess Sutton would be a better example, because Sutton, the expectations really did not hit, even though he was getting a huge quarterback upgrade as well because Wilson sucked. So if Rodgers has a Russell Wilson season, then Garrett Wilson probably won't do any better. But the good thing about Wilson is that is probably his floor, right? Like what he did last year, if Rodgers comes in and sucks, he could still probably do what he did last year because he had Mike White and Zach Wilson.
Maybe even exceed that a little bit.
Right. But that's worst case scenario. Best case scenario, he's Devontae Adams and he's, the wide receiver 1, 2, or 3 in fantasy. He probably won't be a wide receiver 1 or 2. Or even 3. I don't really see that, but I could see him for sure being top 10 this year, with like a top 5 upside, and being a real wide receiver 1 in fantasy. He's got the ability. Now he's got the quarterback. The Jets also improved their offensive line a little bit, so we'll see how it goes. And it is a wild card of a team. That's your biggest concern.
Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers, and they got Nathaniel Hackett and all those things.
No,
but if Rodgers is just capable of doing Aaron Rodgers-like things, Garrett Wilson's having a big year.
Are you willing to put your chips on the table and invest the $305 that it takes to get him?
In PPR, yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
I am.
In ESPN, and that's a little weighted. 305 is strong because the ADP that I'm looking at has CBS has him at 71 for ADP. ESPN,
What?
the FFPC,
71 is holy
and,
cow. That's not going to last.
Underdog all have him anywhere between 24 and 17. So
yeah, I think Underdog has him like early second round.
Yeah, he's a second round pick in my mind. Why did they even put CBS in here? They have Justin Jefferson 24. Guys, you got to update that a little.
You know what? I think it's because their standard is standard. They don't play PPR or half PPR.
Get out of here. So anyway, yeah. So like right now, I think he's going to be anywhere between a second and a early third round pick. So you're willing to invest that?
Yeah. The second,
me too.
Well, it depends on who else is on the board because it would just be based on like my player rankings.
Yeah.
But in the third round, absolutely, and even the second round, I'd be willing to, depending on which wide receivers are available.
Okay. Yeah, Chris Olave, great buy. He's definitely gonna be on our breakout show. We'll talk about him more, I guess, in depth on that show, and why we think he could be a breakout based on certain metrics and stuff like that as we move forward. But Rodgers always has or always tries to have a superstar wide receiver. And it, like Rick said, the ceiling is Devontae Adams if it works out. So, if that's the kind of production you're getting from Garrett Wilson, obviously you're going to be very happy with your second round pick. So,
right.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, great, especially in PPR leagues. Chris Olave is the number 2 guy. I actually started liking him a little after the last show when we talked about him. I started liking him a little bit more than I originally had thought, only because I blanked and I forgot that they got Derek Carr. Not that that's exciting.
Yeah, you thought they were running it with Andy Dalton again or Winston.
I was like, why are we in on this guy again? But no, with Derek Carr, I think he's an upgrade, obviously, on Jameis Winston. I think he's obviously an upgrade on, Andy Dalton, like massive upgrade from what they had before. But I don't think he's like a great quarterback. I don't think he can, put up prolific numbers. What I do know is that in the past, he's carried high-level tight ends in fantasy football, guys that finish top 3 at tight end and guys that can finish in the top 12 in fantasy football. He's done it before with Hunter Renfrow, last year with Devontae Adams. So if Chris Olave ends up being this ridiculously good athlete, or he's already a ridiculously good athlete, but a ridiculously good wide receiver in his career, I think the breakout probably happens this year, and Derek Carr can get him to the promised land in that department. So I'm not worried necessarily about Chris Olave and his quarterback situation. It's so funny because Garrett Wilson's player profiler best comparable is Chris Olave, and Chris Olave's is Garrett Wilson. So that's
pretty funny.
But yeah,
and they were teammates too at Ohio State. So.
Last year he had 15 games played, 119 targets, 72 catches, 1,000 yards, 4 tutties. So he was not too far off of Garrett Wilson's production last year. And so I think with a better quarterback, better situation, Saints offense always typically looks at least mid. And I think that could mean good things for Chris Olave. And right now I would say of these two guys, like if you didn't want to invest the draft capital in Garrett Wilson, you could invest the draft capital in Chris Olave because he's going about 10 to 15 spots behind Garrett.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. The only thing I'm a little, and I think I brought this up last time we talked about Chris Olave, bullish about was I'm just not a huge Derek Carr guy anymore. And I do think it is factual that he did support elite tight ends and elite receivers in the past. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't mean Olave can't be like that. Yeah. But just looking at Carr's career numbers and seeing what even Andy Dalton did last year on the Saints, they're not like that different. Okay. So I think that's going to be something I want to keep my eye on, and we'll see how the projections play out too. But either way, Olave is a great receiver, and I do think a year 2 breakout is coming for him. It's just going to depend on quarterback play. Where how good is the breakout? Like he's a player. It's rare to get a player in his second year to have like a really high floor as well. But I think both these guys, Wilson and Olave, have high floors. I remember a couple years ago, Juju, when he was going into his second or third year or something, he was hyped up into the second round in drafts. And he was one of those guys that he had this crazy upside, but the floor we weren't really sure about. And usually you get second year breakout wide receivers. And a lot of these other guys, I don't think have that high of a floor. Where Olave, like, he's going to be a good receiver. Yeah, he's going to be a good receiver with Andy Dalton. He's going to be a good receiver with Jameis Winston. He's going to be a good receiver with Derek Carr. It's just going to be a matter of what is his ceiling like.
And there was also a point last year too. I would say by like week 10 that he was getting ranked in half PPR and PPR leagues like in the top 12.
Yeah, he was.
Because of the production that he was putting up.
And he was almost, in a ways, better than Garrett Wilson last year because he played less games. And he was wide receiver like 24, 25. So I think if he played the 17, he might have been top 20, maybe. So who knows? But it's fair. And I think if you don't want to spend the capital on Wilson, Olave is definitely the next best choice.
Yeah,
there.
He's cheaper. I mean, if you want
are you concerned about Michael Thomas at all?
Not really.
Plays?
Michael Thomas has not been able to stay on the field even when they said he's coming back. So
right.
I just at this point in Michael Thomas's career, like if he comes out and he starts dominating, obviously that's a problem for Chris Olave, but I think the chances of that happening are super low. So Olave's the guy there now. I don't think it's Michael Thomas.
Thomas did the first like 3 games of last year. I was looking at it the other day. He had like a 20-point game, 15 points, and then like 12 fantasy points. And then he was done again for the year after the first 3 games. So, but if he could just stay healthy, I think he'll be involved. But Olave would probably still be the guy either way.
Right. I'm actually curious to see what they consider. Yeah, so Michael Thomas is considered like a split end, which is just an outside receiver. Chris Olave.
Slant boy.
Chris Olave. Oh, they got A.T. Perry. Let's go, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, that big dog.
I'm getting him in the 4th round in some dynasty leagues.
There you go.
Rookie draft.
But anyway, yeah, Chris Olave. I think he'll survive the Michael Thomas target share takeaway.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the next guy. This guy's a little bit more interesting. It's Christian Watson. Only reason why he's ahead of some of these other guys for me, like Drake London and some other dudes, is because I think the quarterback situation is just a pinch better. A pinch better for Christian Watson. I'm not in love with Love, but I do think that there's some good things to be shown there. But Christian Watson's you pull up his player profiler online, 96th percentile 40-yard dash, 98th percentile speed score, 95th percentile burst score, 97th percentile catch radius. He's a ridiculous athlete, and he showed that at times last year. Didn't he have multiple 3 touchdown games?
Yeah, he had like a 5-week stretch where he was like a top 3 fantasy receiver.
Yeah, no, he's ridiculous. So the question here is obviously the quarterback situation is flipped for Christian Watson, where he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers anymore. He doesn't have that quarterback. But Rodgers last year wasn't particularly all that good. If you look at his numbers, like he wasn't the prolific passer that you would anticipate him being. Obviously, he's better than Jordan Love, but even at last year's clip. But Christian Watson was like a ridiculously good wide receiver at times when Rodgers was playing well. So the question is, does Jordan Love come in and actually have success? That first round pick that they spent on him, like, was that a good decision for the Green Bay Packers? If he ends up playing well, I think Christian Watson is a good buy. If not, it's a lot more risky of a pick. And right now, he's floating around pick 51 in most in PPR format. So, you're talking like a late 4th round pick probably for him. That to me is as good as he was at points last year. The Packers are such a hard puzzle to solve.
Right.
Because like Jordan Love could come. There were times last year where I watched Jordan Love and like when he came in relief for Rodgers, and he looked good.
Yeah.
He looked like he had never looked like that last year in other appearances that he had in the preseason or before. So it's like, okay,
he's always looked lost before.
And last year he looked like good. He actually looked really good. So it's like it's a balance between if Jordan Love is horrible and he sucks and they have to go to a backup, then I don't think Christian Watson is going to be a guy that you want to invest in. I don't like to invest in bad offenses, and you can talk about talent all you want, but like if you don't have a quarterback to throw you the ball as a wide receiver, I don't see a second-year breakout happening for a guy like Christian Watson. But if Jordan Love plays as good as Aaron Rodgers last year or better, I think with Lazard gone and the target share, are the target vacancies that they have with Bob Tonyan and Alan Lazard, it's going to mean good things for Christian Watson's target share. Last year he had 65 targets. I think that goes up to 120 to 130 this year because he's the number one wide receiver on the football team. So if they're in a good offense, Christian Watson's going to be a great investment. If they're in a bad offense, then it's going to be, he might put up the same numbers he did last year, but it's going to be a little bit of a disappointment, especially if you're dumping a 4th round pick into that. Now, to be honest with you personally, I don't think he's going to be that high at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I would imagine that he falls back a little bit, but he won a lot of people some games in the middle of the season, so that might weigh in a different direction. But anyway.
Yeah, Watson's a tough one. I think and he's like I said, after Olave, and I was saying Olave is kind of a rare example, and even Wilson a little bit as well, where they're second-year guys, but their floor is really high for a second-year player.
Yeah. Watson's
the opposite of that, and I think some of these other guys are too, where he's just like, he's either going to be really good or he's going to really disappoint you. And we saw flashes of some really good moments with him with Rodgers last year. He stunk in the beginning of the year, and then he had his breakout game.
Yeah.
And he had a 4-week stretch of 32 points, 21, 21, 24. In that stretch, I think he was a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy. Then they had the bye, and then he was kind of mid again. 8, 10, 2, 16 to finish the year, which is okay, but nothing great. So he's going to be a wild card. And I think he's also going to be one of those inconsistent players. And you're right, it's all going to depend on Jordan Love, and it's all going to depend on the Packers offense. And I don't even think Love has to be great. He just needs to be
good.
Solid.
Yeah, solid.
Yeah, for Watson to be good. But we could also see a scenario where he sucks.
Kirk Cousins numbers.
Yeah, and if he sucks and they go to a backup quarterback, like Watson's going to blow. Yeah. He's not going to be even a top 30 fantasy wide receiver. So
I think, quickly, like I think the risk of variation for, a guy like Christian Watson is kind of large, where it's like you got a major range of outcomes. Where Garrett Wilson, like, there's a chance that the Jets suck, but even if they do, he's probably going to produce the same amount.
Yeah, he'll still get a lot of catches.
Chris Olave
will still be a PPR guy.
Same with Olave. Same with Olave. But like with Christian Watson, it could go like, if he's not good, the Packers are going to want to lose. They're going to want to lose. They're going to want to go get Caleb Williams. Like, they're not going to try to win a bunch of football games.
Right.
So it's like, if that happens and they stink, they're going to go with the backup quarterback. They're going to ride with him the rest of the way. They're going to lose a lot of games, and their offense is going to look horrible, and Christian Watson's going to suck. So, and like the reality of that situation where you have that many, that risky of a selection, is that worth it to you? If there are other guys available that might be less risky.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth it in the 4th. I think
I agree.
In the 4th round, you're still kind of building your core guys. I don't know if I feel comfortable with Watson as like one of my core players.
Because it could pay off, but I'm just playing the risk game. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's again, and I've said this before because I've been doing so much best ball now. But like in best ball, I feel better about it because it's just like he could win you a league, Yeah. Where in redraft he could also win you a league, but he could also like very easily lose you a league.
Yeah, he could hurt himself.
It's definitely something that I would be cautious about. I feel better about it the later we go. So if he falls a little bit, then I would feel a lot better about it.
Quickly, round. What round would, like, if he fell to a certain round, what round would you be?
Ideally, I think I want him in the 6th.
Yeah, I agree. I'm on the same boat.
I think I would in the 5th round. I'd think about it. 4th round's a little too early though.
Agreed. All right, number 4, Drake London of the Atlanta Falcons. Now, like I said, the only reason why Drake London for me is a little bit lower than Christian Watson is because his quarterback is Desmond Ridder.
Yeah.
And Love was a first-round pick and a developmental guy. So, like, I think there's a chance he could be really good. I don't think there is any chance that Desmond Ridder could be really good. And I hate to say that, but I just don't think he can be a good quarterback.
Unless he's Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
There's like third or was he a 3rd-round pick?
Yeah.
Like, how many it's Russell Wilson and Dak. That's it. Those are the only guys who are like those 3rd, 4th-round
and
picks.
Based on what I saw last year, it was horrible.
And exactly. I did not like what I saw last year. I didn't love the prospect either. I think you liked him more than I did as a prospect. But, yeah, I'm with you in the same boat here. And I like London. I think he's got a lot of upside and a lot of potential. And, hopefully I really wanted the Falcons to get Lamar because then I would have been all in. Or at least get them a quarterback upgrade. So we'll see how it plays out long term. But, yeah, I'm a little bullish on London as well.
Yeah, he had 117 targets last year, 72 catches, 866 yards, 4 tutties.
A good rookie year.
Yeah, decent rookie year. So, but like, there's definitely a chance that he could be that breakout guy. I just think Atlanta, they're not good. You know what I mean? They're still not a good football team. They're not going to put together, like, they didn't get a quarterback. They didn't really do anything, and they're going to ride with Ridder this year. And looking at that offense, like, I can't justifiably invest draft capital personally for Drake London if there's no quarterback there and there's not going to be a good offense. Like, what are you going to get? Do you anticipate him producing more?
Yeah, and it's going to be a team that probably, if I had to guess, they're going to be in the top 3 in rushing attempts. And they might be number 1.
Yeah.
As a team.
Yeah, especially with Bihan.
Right.
And then you have Kyle Pitts coming back, who is basically just a slot wide receiver at this point. Doesn't really block or do anything else.
Yeah, well, they had him being a blocking tight end last year, so
which is
who knows?
Ridiculous. But yeah, so like last year he was wide receiver 31 in 17 games. Like, I think that there's room for improvement, like a top 24 kind of finish. Yeah, like I think he could do that, but I don't think there's a breakout ceiling for him where he could finish top 12 or top 10. And when you're talking about a dude who's getting picked around pick 50 as well, similar to Christian Watson, like that's he's actually going according to this 1 pick sooner. So like if like that to me is just too much of a massive risk. Like that's an investment in a pick where it's like at least the Packers have offensive pieces. Like
yeah, and
the Atlanta Falcons have Bihan.
I don't love Ridder or Love, but Love was at least a 1st-round pick that's had 3 years of time to develop. Ridder's not. So
I mean, I like those younger players. Like if you're choosing between DeAndre Hopkins and Drake London, like I'd probably take Drake London.
Yeah,
just because I'm like, at least there's like upside there.
Right. Yeah.
But like, I'm not gonna put myself in those situations. You know what I mean? So I probably will not be drafting a lot of Drake London. I don't know about you, but.
No, I'm not.
All right, let's talk about number 5, a guy that we were going to be all in on this offseason, and the NFL's stupid rules stole it from us, but it's Jameson Williams. And we have him number 5, right?
Yes.
The rest of the guys that we'll talk about quickly and only as honorable mentions. But
he was the clear number 3, I feel like.
Yeah,
before the
suspension. So last year he came in and he kind of wasn't like, he played 6 games, he had 9 targets and 1 catch. So like that's not good.
No, it's not.
There was not a lot of opportunity.
He had 2 touchdowns that got taken back. Like that were like 70-yard bombs.
Yeah, so I mean it's very clear what they're going to do with him.
Yep.
But he is 99th percentile 40-yard dash, 85th percentile speed score. So he is a vertical freaking burner threat if you don't know about Jameson Williams. He's 6'1", 180 pounds, and he's about as fast as Tyreek Hill. So that's absurd to me. Like, if you can find a prospect like that, this guy should be good at some point.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of Waddle.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. He's a little bit taller than Waddle, but that's a great comparison. But big thing for Jameson Williams is like he missed 11 games last year because of his injury. And now this year he's going to start the season, he's going to miss 6. So it's like he's missing a lot of time. That's a lot of time to develop with your quarterback, a lot of time to build a repertoire, all of that stuff. And he can play in the preseason. He's going to go to, OTAs and
which if I was them, I would play him a lot in the preseason.
Yes, I agree. I think Jameson Williams could be a sneaky ad. Like right now, this is his ADP is 87. If you're getting him in the 8th or 9th round, like that's a sneaky ad that if you want to invest in players that are suspended or not going to play for the first 6 weeks, similar like D-Hop last year, there's a chance that he could come in and just dominate. No more DJ Chark, so it's like Williams is going to be the guy on the outside. Amon-Ra will be the guy in the slot. So I could see, in a real sense, Jameson Williams, if he was playing a full season, he'd be around 120 targets. But with his explosiveness, like you said, he had 2 touchdowns called back. Like this guy is going to be somebody that pops the top off the defense several times. And he's going to be a boomer bust player, at least early in his career, similar to Tyreek Hill, or, even Jalen Waddle gets a heck of a lot more target share, but even Jalen Waddle, like rookie season, where he was like, his big thing was, early was popping it off the top of the defense and scoring a touchdown. So Jameson Williams is probably going to be in that same boat early, but with the 6-game suspension, I just don't know that I want to invest in a dude and wait 6 weeks for him to show up, especially when he's a guy that had 9 catches, 1 reception in 6 games. So
right. It's not like D-Hop last year.
9 targets, 1 reception. Sorry,
you knew when he'd come back, he would be like at least like a top, 15, 20 guy, probably top 15. Jameson Williams, we don't know. So you're not only waiting those first 6 weeks, but you're also then taking another risk of him sucking after those 6 weeks, and they're not getting him involved enough. So it's a very risky pick, and it's someone, again, I'm willing to take, but the price will be what matters here. And to me, at 87, I don't know. I think it would depend on how my roster looks. I again would want him a round later, though. What is that, 8th round?
Yeah.
So I would think like 9th or 10th round for me would be ideal again, but 8th round I would think about it. But yeah, he's got, and the reason is because even though we don't know how good he's going to be, to me he has all of the upside in the world. Yeah. So when he comes back, he can be a Jalen Waddle type. He can be that just absolute burner superstar. Kind of like, honestly, what Christian Watson was doing at moments last year, I think is what Jameson Williams could do this year. But we'll have to see. The suspension definitely hurts because I was going to be all in on him this year, but the suspension hurts a lot.
Yeah. You just don't want to invest in players who are going to miss 6 weeks of the season.
Right, exactly. So, we'll see. I still like him, though. I still like the player.
Yeah.
I still like the opportunity, too, with TJ Hawkinson no longer there. He's the wide receiver 2 on that team when he comes back. So we'll see how it goes.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. All right, some extra guys that we got in here. I think George Pickens should be in the conversation as top 6 because he did have a really good season last year at times, and then there were moments where he wasn't. But it definitely showed that he could probably be an NFL stud. 85 targets, 52 catches, 801 yards, and 4 touchdowns last year. So his whole thing is going to be whether or not his quarterback takes a step forward. Kenny Pickett takes a step forward this year. I think George Pickens will be great. Deontay Johnson's kind of falling off a little bit, and they got rid of Claypool. So Pickens is the dude there. He fits the traditional build of wide receiver, and he's pick 81. So, I mean, to be honest with you, like you can either go with Jameson Williams and invest that high draft capital on him and wait 6 weeks to see if he ends up being good, or you could go with George Pickens, who in that same range could probably produce the same amount. I think the ceiling's higher for Williams, but so I would put him in the same breath of all of the other 6 guys that we have here because I do think that he could ascend and be really, really good based on what I saw last year. But the rest of the guys that we have here, like Johan Dotson, Wan'Dale Robinson, Treylon Burks, honorable mentions, like they all have their problems. The Giants don't throw the ball a lot for Wan'Dale. Treylon Burks, he's the number one wide receiver on a football team that has Ryan Tannehill as their quarterback, and they run a lot. So, like, I just don't see
a team that's really falling apart too.
A team that's falling apart, right? So it's like, I mean, there could be good situations for him this year, and I hope he does ascend.
Yeah, I actually think of after the 6, like those are the top 6. I think Burks would be the guy I'd want to take the flyer on.
Okay.
These other guys, because just because he is the number one guy there, and there's a lot of hype for Titans camp. People saying like he is the new AJ Brown and all this stuff, or they plan on making him the new AJ Brown.
Saddle it up.
Yeah, but like it's the Titans. I think the Titans are one of the worst teams in the league. Or
AJ Brown with Tennessee in his best days was only getting 120 targets.
Exactly. So I think he's
gonna be one hell of an explosive receiver in order to have success.
Right, but that's still good.
No,
I mean,
it's a good target.
Yeah, and I'd still take that. So, and I like Dotson a lot as a player. But he's very similar to Drake London, except he doesn't have as much opportunity, where we really don't think the quarterback's going to be great. And you're really just hoping that he's at least decent.
Now, I will say, I saw his Matt Harmon's perception profile the other day.
Oh, and you're finally in on him? Well, I've been telling you about Dotson since...
That was a sexy chart, I'll say.
Yeah.
Sam Howell as his quarterback is not sexy.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah,
that's gross. So, if you wanna rage about Dotson, Robinson, and Burks only being our honorable mentions, please do so in the comments. But there you have it. Top second-year wide receivers: Wilson, Olave, Watson, London, Williams. If you want to get some of these guys on your team, you can. I'd suggest getting Wilson and Olave. It'd be fun.
Yeah, try to get the top guys.
Draft those 2 guys and get running backs early. Should be interesting. See you later, guys.
Take it easy.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.